What are we, Gen Xers who figured out all this tech? Yes.
And of course, we test everything 2 nights ago. Everything works great. And then now all of a sudden, we just like, yeah. So
Yeah,
here we
but
are.
it was testing us. It was testing, can we stay calm? Can we just believe that it's all gonna work out?
I
Like,
mean, for a
know?
guy who suffers from debilitating anxiety, that was the biggest test I've been through. But look at me. I'm chill. I'm so glad it's you, sister, because you just helped me through that. Just breathe, stay calm, all of your help. So I just,
Question, how did it cut? Did any of the anxious energy come up for you through that process?
oh, yeah. I mean, the anxiety hit about 10 minutes before when I couldn't figure it out. So obviously, I started, doing all my stuff and I had to remember my tools and my tricks. And you reminded me to breathe. So, I try to remind myself too, and thank you for asking, like, it's okay if stuff isn't, I'm such a like, has to be now sort of guy that when you have these disorders I have to let that go. And I'm still struggling with that because I really am schedule orientated. And like, if something goes past a minute or two, I start getting all chomping. But I'm doing great. I'm feeling good. It's great to have you today on the program. How are you feeling? How are you doing?
I'm feeling great. I'm super excited for us to continue our conversations that we've had, behind the scenes and to just learn more and explore more together and share about our own processes and our own journeys. And maybe at some point later, as we get into it, I'd love to hear, what you did for yourself to support yourself when that anxious energy came up. I'd love to know, like you said, I have tools. I want to know, like, what are your tools? And maybe I could share some other tools with you.
Yeah, and absolutely. And I think that'd be a great thing to touch on too. Like at the end of the conversation, we can always touch on how everything went, how we felt about it. I love that idea. So definitely touch on how it started for me. But again, having you on is already calming for me because if people don't know, Infinity and I grew up in the same town together. We've known each other a very long time. So if there was any guest to have technical difficulties with, sister, it was you. And I just appreciate what you just breathe, relax. We got this. So right out of the gate, I'm feeling great. I'm glad that you're feeling good. Now that we're rolling, obviously everybody knows your name. You want to just kind of give us a little blip about kind of, I've been following you quite a bit, but for those people who haven't been following you, you just want to kind of bring them up to speed a little bit on kind of who you are, what you've kind of dealt with, kind of where you're at right now, what you're doing right now, because I found that amazing. If any of my followers haven't been following you, please go give her a follow. So just you want to kind of catch us up to speed real quick on kind of what you're doing and where you're at.
Yeah, definitely. So, I'm Infinity, if you don't know me. And it is going to be 8 years ago in April. I had brain surgery. 3 years before the brain surgery, I was having seizures that went misdiagnosed as hormonal problems. And so I was seeing doctor after different practitioners. I went far and wide. I wasn't just like in the westernized allopathic lens of healing. I was trying spiritual teachers. I was trying different types of healing modalities. I was trying everything. Mind, body, soul. Like, how do we get this puzzle figured out? And I think that I personally sort of tend towards a more spiritual or natural way of healing. So I don't always give as much value to the physical or to the allopathic, which doesn't mean, anyways, I'll share more about that as I go into it. So I was seeing a women's health specialist. They thought I had hormonal problems, but my seizures weren't convulsant seizures. So, like, if I was having a seizure, it would go like this. It would last about 30 seconds. You couldn't tell it was happening to me, but if I was having one, I would come back to the conversation, no idea what was going on. I'd forget what
Right.
I was doing, forget what we were talking about. And it was far and few between the first couple of years. It was one every couple months. And then they started to get more and more. the doctors just said, here it's hormonal problems, try this supplement, try this hormone. You're at that period in your life where you could be having this. Maybe it's stress, maybe it's this or that. Um, and so I knew inside me, I was like, that's not it. There's something else. There's
Yeah.
something else. There's something else.
Yeah.
So after 3 years of being told it was hormonal issues and just figure it out, um, I was on the ground in my home. I'm a single mom. My then 5-year-old daughter was like, Mama, Mama, get up. And it wasn't a seizure. I couldn't function anymore because the seizures at that point, after 3 years, were 30 to 40 a day. So my mental capacity, my emotional capacity, I couldn't think. My memory was gone. Like I couldn't remember short-term memory, long-term memory. Like it was really bad. I couldn't run my business anymore. And so I got into the office where my doctor was working, but she couldn't see me that day. So I got to see a different doctor named Anna Lambertson, who saved my life, one of the
Okay.
people over the years. And she looked at me and I explained the seizures, then didn't know what they were, but I explained what they felt like. And I called them energy waves. And it was like this rolling sense of energy from my feet coming up through my torso would culminate in my head. And I thought I was going to have the answers to the universe. It was like this, it was almost euphoric. And I thought, I have a really spiritual, like, core center in me. So I was like, wow, this is some kind of awakening, which it
Right.
was, but not in the way I
Right. Right.
thought. And so I explained these to her, and she's like, have you had an MRI and EEG? And I hadn't. And so within like a couple days, I went and got the EEG. The EEG was normal, but then got the MRI. They found the brain bleed. And the brain bleed was something that I was likely born with a weak blood vessel in my brain that would
Okay.
always bleed. Like it was going to happen. You wouldn't know that you had it until the bleeding started. So it wasn't something that at some point someone would have like seen unless I had had a MRI in my head for some reason.
Right.
So then they found the brain bleed, thankfully caught it before I went blind or before I died because those, you don't know how much it's going to bleed. And
Yeah.
so had it continued, that's what it would have, the result would have been. So it was something where I couldn't turn to my woo woo spiritual ways and like, I do believe that we can heal anything. That is my baseline. I believe we can heal anything.
Yeah.
And I also believe we need the mental, the physical, and the spiritual approach. And in this case, I am so grateful that I met a brain surgeon a couple hours north of me who specialized in these cavernous malformations, who successfully provided brain surgery for me 8 years ago.
Wow.
Um, what else do I want to add about that? So I had a successful brain surgery 8 years ago, and the doctors were like, woo, we did it. You did great. Here you are. And I felt high on life. And I was like, yes. And then about 3 months after, I really went into a deep, deep depression, PTSD. I was suicidal. I was really not okay.
Yeah.
And none of the doctors ever talked about PTSD, ever talked about the nervous system, ever talked about the trauma that occurs when you go through a surgery, never talked about any of my history of anything else that's happened in my life. So I was set out, over the last 8 years to heal myself from that because from the outside, I looked, hey, like no more brain bleed, you should be fine. So that's what I've dedicated and devoted my life to was my own healing, which now has given me tools and ways to support other people who have trauma, whether it be mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, to help them learn about their bodies and their nervous systems through somatic practices and nervous system regulation healing.
Yeah, wow. I mean, what an amazing, just powerful story, first off, for you to go through that process, which I find common in the stories that we, with the kind of, not common pains or not common conditions, that process that can take so long. So explain to me a little bit during that process. Was it a process of elimination like it was with me that kept taking weeks, or was it just really hard to diagnose in general? or what do you felt like, and how did it make you feel every time you thought it was one thing and it wasn't? Like, how was that time for you? How did you feel during that time?
Yeah, I'm trying to go back. So that was probably like 11 years ago. So it was like
Oh,
3 years of seizures. And also my memory
wow.
wasn't great. And my memory still isn't great. So like
Yeah.
my sister actually is a really great mirror for me because she's like, remember when blah, 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 blah? And I'm like, no, like I don't. She's like, stop, you have to. And I'm like, no. And you know, like your siblings can really just like get you. And I'm like, no, I swear I don't.
Yeah.
um, I remember it was really fucking scary. I
Yeah.
remember feeling really alone. I
Yeah.
remember feeling like they're just like, I'm sure you experience this too, where you fucking know there's something,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
and it's like, okay. And I believe my, like, I think I might have said this already, my baseline belief is we can heal anything.
Right.
Okay. So I was like, it was just a game of trial and error, you know. It
Right.
was like,
Right.
you know, and what I feel, what I really believe though, is that as we are on these healing journeys, so I can just talk about this. I believe we come into these human bodies. I believe that we come to Earth with with set lessons, with set traumas, with set things that are going to happen that are meant to teach us things throughout our lifetime. I could have, through all the shit that's happened in my life, I could have like taken many of the things and been really victimized by them and been like, fuck, like I don't deserve this, why
Right.
me, poor
Right.
me, only
Right.
me, I'm cursed, I'm, something must be wrong with me, God must hate me. I mean, there was times I was mad at God,
Yeah.
and there was times that I was on my knees praying like,
Yeah.
what the fuck, you know.
Yeah.
We all go through these times, but I think that a important part of like my, and I don't know when this developed, but my baseline core is that everything that happens in life is happening for me to learn and grow from. So while it was fucking miserable, and I didn't always like, I had moments of like, just like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
I wanna kill myself.
Yeah.
But underneath that, there is this part of me that knows and believes at my core, well, what is going on, what has happened for me, it needed to happen for me to learn so many different things. Like the most recent thing for me was I woke up um 2 months ago now, and I couldn't move. My neck was frozen, my shoulders frozen, I couldn't get out of bed. I was in debilitating pain. I was afraid to move. And
Wow.
so it was scary, and I've been
Yeah.
on a whole process with that, but the lesson that I learned from that, it was I had to completely surrender. I had to receive support that I like, I'm a strong woman, you know, like I had to fucking let go of all that and just be like, yeah, hold me. Whereas with brain surgery, I didn't allow that. I didn't allow myself to receive the support that I needed. I was like, no, I fucking got this. I survived brain surgery, you know?
Right.
So I think this lesson, not that I needed it, not that I had to have it. Well, a part of me did need it. I did need to learn how loved and supported I am by my community. I did need to learn, you know, there's specific things about using my voice with it too. I did need to stand up for some certain things. I did need to say some certain things. So while I don't think anyone ever deserves what's happening to them, I do fully believe that there is lessons and teachings and purpose in any pain that shows up for us, whether it's mental, physical, spiritual, or emotional. And I think without that underlying place, it's really hard to heal. Or like without that, like, so my question, can I ask you a question?
Oh yeah, please. And again, just open
Okay.
conversation. I really
Okay,
love what
cool.
you said too, and really resonated with what you said. And again, anybody who deals with pain, I think, can resonate and share in what you just said. So yeah, please, conversation. So fire away.
So I'm curious for you, with the condition that you have, how have you, like, where is your like where are you coming from with your beliefs, with your spiritual practices, with your core? Like, how are you defining this for you?
Yeah, and
Like, how are you
again, like,
using this, I guess?
yeah, and so for me, again, like the pain and process for me has been about 5 years. So as you just mentioned, I've kind of got out of the phase of being sent to every doctor, told I was fine, passed around like, just here you go, next person. And then once I kind of figured out what was going on with me, I went through that phase of acceptance, right? And then anger. And then, I'm coming to the point now where I have the acceptance down. I'm trying to come to the realization of what that looks like having a lifelong disorder. That's been a little challenging for me lately. But what I have learned on the note that you were speaking of too is that I have always like felt like the growth only comes through hard times, right? We never grow through the easy cakewalk type shit. So when this hit me, much like kind of you, I knew that there was a purpose and a reason for it. And I felt like for me, it was not only to test my spiritual, mental, and physical boundaries to their fullest, but push me past those. So, like you said, I could become kind of like this enlightenment that comes with this massive pain or the existence of pain just that won't go away. Like you said, it makes you want to die every day. You do have to kind of push through walls, but every time I did that, I felt like I got stronger and grew strength. So I almost looked forward to the challenge, like you said, like fucking bring it on. Like, what you got next? You gave me the trigeminal. What do you want to throw at me? You throw the glossopharyngeal. Like, bring it. Like, I'm going to use everything that it throws at me. I'm going to try to use as a positive in my life. And watching you has been a huge inspiration of that. And you've been a blessing through that. And so that kind of phases into the next topic that we talk about a lot with people are those big three, like we mentioned, like the physical, the mental, and the spiritual. So we kind of touched
Mm-hmm.
on the physical of what you had, the mental side. Do you want to kind of touch more on that spiritual side and maybe dive a little bit deeper into like how you feel, where you gain your strength from? It's not like a specific religion thing, but just whoever your higher power, where you gain your strength, or a guide or a person. You want to kind of express that to us a little bit and share with us that part,
Yeah. So, well, I want to go back a tiny bit and then I'm going to go into that. So,
please.
I'm at this point right now with this last thing that happened when I woke up with my shoulder and I couldn't move. And then another thing happened on top of that. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like,
Yeah,
no, enough. So I also, while I am a fucking warrior and I will use anything that comes into my life to grow, evolve, and learn, I also am telling the universe. And what I actually learned through this last experience is that I can learn another way. I can learn through love. I can learn through support. I can learn. It doesn't have to be. I know I'm hard headed. Like the brain surgeon actually were like, it actually took us an extra hour to get you drilled onto the table. And my family laughed. They were like, that
uh,
doesn't surprise
I love it. Oh yeah,
us. So I'm at the point where I'm like, also universe, God, spirit, whatever you believe in, whatever, I think it's really important that on a healing journey, whatever it is for you, and even if you're like, I think it must end at some point when you're on a long healing journey that you you got to find something outside of yourself, something either to pray to, something to talk with, something bigger than ourselves, because it doesn't make sense. Like, why the fuck did this happen to you?
yeah,
It's not fucking fair.
right,
Like,
Right.
and with a lot of my clients that I work with, I hear these traumatic stories that I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
How could there even be a God? You know?
Right.
And so there's that question too, is like, why do we go through so much pain?
Right.
Look at the war that's happening right now. It's like, how could we eat? How is this even occurring?
Right.
So there's a part of me that I've come to within my own, just like internal belief stuff that is like, there is a purpose in the pain.
Yeah.
Even, and I like want to throw up saying this, even in the war,
Sure.
like the way that I see what's happening in the external is a reflection of what's happening inside each of us.
Right.
Where is each person at war within themselves?
Yeah.
And then how is that reflected out into their family and their community? And then, and it just reverberates. It's not just, we're seeing the eruption of it right now in that, but it's happening inside every single one of us. So many humans are at war within themselves. And it shows up in different ways. It shows up, in disease. It shows up in disorders. It shows up in pain. It shows up, so it's like, I think that that you and I sitting here, people who have living with and have overcome tremendous amounts of pain, we're here to teach pain as the teacher, how to heal yourself. Because if we all, I'm not saying work doesn't need to be done on a grander scale, but
Right.
I am only as good to others as I am to myself. If I am fucked up inside, if I haven't worked with my trauma, with my pain, with my history, with my own family shit, then like, who am I to go out and lead anyone in anything? What
Right.
am I going to go create in the world? If I'm all messed up inside, I'm going to go create more of that out in the world. So I think the greatest thing you can do is what you and I are doing,
Yeah.
the personal work,
Yeah.
the healing work on ourselves, and then now sharing about it.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. And just with the way that you share too, and just your openness and the feeling and emotion that really comes across when you share your experiences with us, that's what's really captivating too, is just the way that you emotionally attach to what's going on and things like that. Now, do you have like, other than spiritual stuff, do you have any like guides or teachers or shamans or anybody that you like work with, or any type of like, women's groups or like circles? Like, what's kind of your jam as far as
Mm-hmm.
that?
Over the years, like I've always had a very like, from a young age, I was searching. I grew up in a Russian Orthodox cult when I was younger, then like my family is Jewish, so then also explored Judaism. Then none of it really fit. Like my family wasn't super into the Jewish tradition. So I would go to my like cousins' houses and stuff, and I was like, oh, I wanted spirituality. I wanted some connection to something. I looked around at the world. I remember in high school and being like, ew, I'm embarrassed to be like an American. Like, where's my culture? What are my traditions? We've stolen things, you know?
Yeah.
And so I remember getting in high school into like Native American stuff and going to different powwows and doing some research on that. And then as I got older, it got into more spiritual stuff. So, like, I think from my early 20s, I had my first spiritual teacher. And then tried many different things. And then after brain surgery was a huge opening, awakening for me. Before brain surgery and after brain surgery, there was like a period of 6 months where I was psychic. I could see things. I
Sure.
knew things about people. I could see energy. Nature started talking to me. Trees started talking to me. Trees actually helped me to stay here on Earth. They taught me something I called treathing, which is breathing with trees. So
Mhm.
over the years of healing, when I was really not well, the trees were my connection to the earth and still are. When I go through a hard time, I've found my favorite trees here in Mexico. And I go sit with those trees and I put whatever part of my body they call to me. Maybe it's my forehead, maybe it's my back, maybe it's my chest, maybe I sit on the ground with their roots. But they taught me this process where I put my forehead on the tree, I breathe, my crown opens up to like through the branches up to the universe. So I'm connected up to the everything. And then my legs go down into the earth. They usually instruct me to take off my shoes so that my legs go down into the earth and become the roots and connect all throughout the earth. And so they taught me that, which really has been a huge practice for me to stay here, because there's been many times where I'm like, fuck this shit, right? Have you felt that before? A life
Oh,
of pain? What the fuck?
yeah, oh, many times before. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's again like even what you just said gave me goosebumps because speaking about that, and for me, like you said, and I'm gonna definitely because I haven't done what you have, where you sit with the tree, but for me, nature bathing and being, in Oregon, we got the forest and the lakes and the streams. That's probably what I would consider my church, if you will, and where
Yes.
I seem to get a lot of my healing energy from as well as just the
Yes.
mother. And
Yes.
you kind of mentioned too that you have the trees, and then obviously, like most of us, you also have that beautiful ocean that you connect to. So are you
Mhm.
able to like get out in the ocean and kind of, that can be a very healing, is that a healing practice for you to do when you're that close, is go swim and be in the mana?
My girlfriends and I actually we go to the beach usually on Sundays together, and we've started calling it church.
There you go. Yeah,
Yeah,
love
so
it.
like we've been we go to church every Sunday, and if I can get in any other time, I do. But I really love living here in Puerto Vallarta because in Southern Oregon we have the beautiful mountains. The mountains always have felt like a hug to me.
Right.
And so coming here, we have amazing mountains and we have the ocean. So I have my hugging mountains, and then I have the ocean, and it is so amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and what a beautiful healing place. And again, just you sharing the visual pictures from there, it makes me feel better and healing and just a wonderful thing. And
Well,
then
and real
so
quick, hold on one
yeah,
second. Real quick, like
please.
you were talking about coming out in nature, nature bathing, grounding, actually taking your shoes off, getting your body
Yeah.
on the earth is also really, really great for your parasympathetic nervous system.
Oh,
So it's
hugely.
really good for your nervous system to move you out of the fight or flight, which is like the place where it's fearful, you can't see options or opportunities. And it's like that yeah, it's just the fear state. And
Yeah.
many humans get stuck in that place through trauma that's happened throughout life. And the way that I look at trauma is we're humans, we come to this earth, trauma happens. It's not that you've done something wrong. Trauma to me is just excess energy that's been stored in the body. So it could be mental, emotional, physical, spiritual. It's something that's happened that our body didn't have the capacity to fight back, to run from. It's extra energy. So maybe you were young and you didn't know how. Maybe you were in a car accident and you couldn't escape. It's trauma isn't something to be ashamed of. It is something that every single human has, whether it's micro or macro.